This is an India Today exclusive. It's a rare occasion when you have two countries coming to India for trade talks, and I'm being joined by the heads of delegations from Norway and Switzerland. I'm being joined by Norwegian Trade Minister Mr. Vestre, as also Switzerland's State Secretary for Economic Affairs, Ms. Budliger. Thank you so much for joining us here on India Today. But before I begin on the trade talks, which is a very important aspect of your visit to India, let's just talk about climate change, because COP28 just concluded. The global stock take document has been adopted, but we have the small island states that have raised objections. It just seems like the world is still divided when it comes to climate change. Minister, if you could begin with how you see the document being adopted in Dubai, and whether if the world is indeed divided.
Yeah, first of all, I'm very glad to see that the world leaders have agreed on stepping up the game, and that this platform is more ambitious compared to whatever we have had in recent years. So at least that's a good starting point. According to Norway, it should have been even more ambitious in terms of speeding up the green transition and accelerating the transition into renewable energy. And that's also why it's so important that we work together on this issue among friends and allies and partners like the EFTA countries and India, to see how can we partner up and team up to develop new technologies, do R&D together, make sure that we make green investments together, and utilize all the tremendous potential we find in the new renewables. And what makes me optimistic about this is that now the technology is getting more and more available, and we can also scale up the use of new technology to levels we have never seen before in history of mankind. The only problem is, and this is one major problem, is that we started this transition way too late. So basically we have just a few years left now to reduce the global emissions, and that's why it's so important that huge, very important economies like the Indian economy are contributing, and that we work together as partners to find the right solutions.
Right. In terms of the transition to renewables, Secretary Budliger, do you think there is a forward movement that you see between Switzerland and India, between the European countries and India? Because when it comes to technology, there was an entire conversation on how developing countries also need that technology, and that technology needs to be shared.
No, I absolutely see a forward movement. First of all, I think what Paris Agreement did, it really united us in language and in purpose. And I listen to what Prime Minister Modi says, or we've just spent time with Minister Goyal, and it resonates with the language they use and the objectives they formulate. And that's what Minister Vestre is referring to. I think we can really assist each other. We have some of the cutting-edge technology, and of course India has massive opportunities for our private sector. And one of the key areas is indeed green infrastructure, energy transition, all these technologies that will be needed not only in India, also back home. And so I definitely get a sense that we're aligned and that there is a forward movement. You know, I can completely relate to the Pacific Islands, because for them it's an existential threat. And you might be surprised that in Switzerland we sort of relate maybe in a rather obvious way, because we have the glaciers. And we see, you know, mountain huts which used to be at the border of the glacier, and now a few years later, and it really feels threatening of how much glaciers have actually reduced. And you see all of a sudden the hut is a kilometer, 2 kilometers away from the glacier. So I can totally relate to the sense of threat that Pacific Island must experience.
Right, and there is an entire document on mountain ecosystems in the COP28. Having said that, the time is now to act. On that note, Secretary Budliger and Minister Vestre, many thanks for joining us here on India Today.